Here.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 20th meeting?
So moved.
Any corrections or additions? Aline, the only thing I would suggest on page 7, it referred to cutout canoes, and it should be dugout canoes. That's the only thing. So anything else? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to appearances, we have 2. Valerie Given. Would you like to speak? And
Can you hear me?
Yes, and we generally allow about 3 minutes for the public appearances.
Okay, if you allow me 4, I have a story to share at the end.
Okay.
All right. I'm speaking concerning the offensive sign displayed on a house across the Yahara Inlet in Grand Cross Park. I've emailed you a photo. The large print on the house displays the letters F and K broken up by the U.S. flag, plus Biden. So F-U-C-K Biden is quite recognizable. No one is saved by the missing letters. It profanes our nation, quote, as we just said, under God, by putting the flag in the middle of the strongest expletive in the English language. Should it be permissible to put up signage facing public that says F anyone you don't like? What if it said F Mayor O'Connor? F Alder, fill in your name. F your neighbor? The sign degrades property values and quality of life for nearby residents. It interferes with enjoyment of a public space by visitors. It harms businesses and Monona's image. It disregards the rights of others to use the space without harm, most of all children. Does public display of the F word fall under the legal definition of obscenity in Wisconsin? Perhaps if the F word is an obscenity because it indecently refers to a sexual act, intercourse. Then it is harmful under tort law. Wisconsin Statute 944.21 describes obscene material as a writing that, 1, the average person applying contemporary community standards would find appeals to the indecent interest if taken as a whole. 2, describes sexual conduct in a patently offensive way. And 3, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, educational, or scientific value. The statute limits application to constitutionally permissible goals of protecting children from exposure to obscenity and preventing assaults on the sensibilities of unwilling adults in public. I hope the council will legislate against further exposure to the obscene sign facing Grand Crossing Park and give legal protection to children and adults in Monona's public places. It's a nice city. Let's all enjoy it. And now a very brief story, but I think impactful. Recently, and this is true, a true story a couple weeks ago. Recently, I was in proximity to a girl about 15 with developmental disabilities. She was waiting for her adult guardian to finish a day's work. Having sat for hours, the girl was losing interest in her dolls and coloring books. so decided to entertain herself with a song. She started a chant at full tilt, A, B, C, D, E, F, U. A, B, C, D, E, F, U. After a few rounds, she ran out of steam. Will that little ditty get her a punch in the nose one day for telling someone F you? Or worse, say it to the wrong authority figure? I think this is a sad story. Unfortunately, the word is pervasive in our society, but I don't think the council wants to help that along. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for appearing. Our other appearance is Patrick Marsh. And Pat, it will give you 5 minutes.
Thank you. It's good to see some familiar faces. I haven't seen many of you in a long time, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. About 3 weeks ago, I received an email from Leah Kimmel. That email was pretty disappointing. After 8 years of service to the city of Monona, highly regarded service when you look at my evaluations, my merit increase, the entire 8-year period. The city decided to bypass me during the first round of interviews for your city administrator position. I'll say that again. The city decided to bypass me after 8 years of service to the city of Monona. For what reason? I don't know. I did do an open records request and received a listing of the candidates that were going to be interviewed. Those candidates, almost in total, don't have the years of experience in local government management than I do. That's in total. One individual has 12 years. 2 individuals have no local government management experience. 1 individual has 5.5, 1 has 6. I have 19 years of local government management experience, almost half of that in Monona. None of the 5 candidates you selected to interview are credentialed ICMA managers. I am an ICMA credentialed manager. I earned that in 2012 while working in the city of Monona. It's the highest honor that can be given to a city manager in terms of experience, education, and continuing ed within the field. About 1 in 12 managers nationwide are credentialed. I'm the only one that's credentialed, and I wasn't selected to be interviewed. I have 31 years of public service experience. So that's 12 additional years beyond my local government management career. The closest individual that's being interviewed has 20 years and 0 years as a city administrator or manager. There's another individual with 17 years of experience in the public sector, 0 years of experience as a city administrator. I would ask you, and I know this is an appearance section, I understand the rules. You're not going to tell me why I was taken out of that pool. Maybe it is the years of experience. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm being discriminated against for my age. Or something else. Maybe I'm being discriminated against for some press that I received in 2020, which I'll tell you was totally false and has been dismissed and expunged. So whatever you're evaluating me on, it's not my experience. I would have clearly been and should be the lead candidate for this position. I would like an explanation of why I was excluded. I believe that's the least you owe me.
Thank you.
Are you going to respond, Mayor?
Pardon?
Are you going to respond?
No, I'm not going to respond. As you know,
I heard you were in charge of the search
this is a
committee.
public appearance section, and I'm not going to respond.
Well, that's, it's not surprising.
Okay, we are moving on. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. There are no items under unfinished business. Under new business, item 2A, consideration of application for 2022-23 patio permit for Leskies Incorporated, doing business as Tully's 2 Food and Spirits, 6401 Monona Drive, Monona, Wisconsin 53716. This is put forth by the License Review Committee. And this is start for immediate approval.
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Doug, are you going to address this?
Sure, this is basically, they had a temporary patio permit and sort of went beyond the deadline for that. We extended it, and now they're basically filed to make it well, I shouldn't say permanent, because they're all just a 1-year permit, but make it a regular permit.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Aye.
Next item, also start for immediate approval, item 2B, consideration of resolution 22-7-2583, authorizing the creation of an assistant planner position put forth by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve?
Is there room for discussion?
We're taking
I'm sorry,
out
I thought we already were. I thought we already said that.
Approve.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Plowman.
Should I come up to the mic or?
Jackson, can he use the mic at the podium or no?
If I speak over
No. Why don't you come over here, then that'd be fine.
Good evening, everybody. This request here is to create the assistant planner position, which would be a regular part-time position, around 25 hours per week. It would include city benefits as well. This role would provide support for zoning administration and development programs within the city, as well as serving as the staff lead to the Landmarks Commission and the Sustainability Committee, with significant involvement in the city's Plan Commission. This would look to fill the gap left by the Planning and Sustainability Coordinator, who left last Friday, and would provide professional planning support in a flexible position. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Alder Moore, did you have a question?
Yeah, a comment and a question. I wholeheartedly support, as chair of the Plan Commission, I'm probably certainly as aware, if not more aware than other individuals of the demands that have been on the plan department and on Doug specifically, especially over the last year. And I wholeheartedly understand the need for this department to have additional assistance. However, I am concerned that that this position would be, I'm just concerned about the level of hours, the number of hours that would be devoted to sustainability, the Sustainability Committee. Because I know that this position as an intern role has been extraordinarily helpful to the Sustainability Committee and to the Plan Department, but I should go without saying that that our commitment to sustainability as a community has suffered some because of the lack of permanent staffing, and so I'm just I would like a discussion, and I'm just wondering, at the same time, if there's opportunity to revisit, I guess, staffing not only for plan and sustainability, but just if this represents an opportunity, if we're going to do something like this, if it represents an opportunity to have a wider discussion about the best way to staff sustainability and plan, given that we all recognize that we have limitations and strong needs in both areas.
I guess, so do you think there should be more hours, are you saying, or I'm not clear on?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of not necessarily more hours, but I know, as I said, I know very well what the demands on the office have been, the plan office have been in the last year, and I'm concerned that the hours dedicated for this position would be sucked up by the plan department, if you will, and conceivably that the sustainability committee would be, would receive even less attention than it has previously, which is, in my view, is problematic given the commitment that we've made in that area.
Doug?
So my understanding from the discussion and the position description is this staff person would lead in addition to helping with zoning administration, they would also lead the Landmarks Commission and Sustainability Committee with also involvement with plan. So my understanding is sort of like right now, Doug is staffing 4 committees, or is that right? 4 or 5? 5. That's okay. So I think that, part of the motivation is that 5 is way too many for anybody. I don't ask anybody to staff. So this would be getting down to 3 at least.
And he needs additional help in the plan department. He is swamped.
Yeah.
Alder Thomas and then Alder Rademacher.
Well, a couple things. I'm not sure what Nancy's concerns are, because we are adding another 2/3 half to help out in both sustainability and planning,
Well,
which is a great deal more than we have now. But my question for Mark is a portion of the salary for this position coming from TIF?
Yes, it is.
Good. It should.
We have it budgeted that way right now, because we have in the budget right now a sustainability coordinator and the planning coordinator. That the planning, a lot of it was TIF related, so we have those combined. We'll allocate more to TIF. Yes, we'll use it.
I'm assuming a portion of this, and if not that, then the case could be made that Doug can devote more time to TIF, and he gets the big bucks, of course, and that we could pay more of his salary out of TIF, because as we know, budget's going to be a struggle this year, so whatever we can take out of TIF is a good thing.
And whatever we can do to get some of this planning work done, the more it helps the budget.
Of course.
Also, right. Alder Rademacher.
Thank you.
Are you finished, Kathy? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I am.
Just to reiterate what Nancy said, I also think I 100% support this this decision. It's a direct replacement for Elisa Guerrero, as I understand. It looks to me like it's laid out exactly to describe what the previous person was doing, and I think Doug could use more than just one part-time assistant. What I also thought when I read this was, and this is perhaps what Nancy is getting at, is that could it also open an opportunity for a larger conversation? So in addition to this position, might we also have a larger conversation about sustainability in general? And here's where I'm coming from when I say that. So as the new chair of the committee, like all the committees that I work with, we are spending some time up front, just sort of looking back on what we did and then looking forward on what we might do next and looking out over the calendar year and planning our work. It's summer in Monona. We have the best parks and rec and things to do, and it's hard to get a quorum during the summer months. So for the past 2 months, we haven't really been able to make a lot of decisions, but we've had a really great conversations over the past couple of months on the Sustainability Committee. And what we talked about is sort of these two areas. One being sort of this external facing work that we do. Things like adopt a storm drain, recycling, no mow May, the ones that you're probably most familiar with. And then there's the internal facing, which sort of has us perplexed. Like, we're not really sure what our relationship is between the citizens on the Sustainability Committee and the department heads. And we know that we have no authority and we have no budget. We have a plan. We have some resolutions. Nobody's trying to tell anybody what to do. But I guess we are very much interested in sort of answering those questions and figuring out how to best move forward. There's just a lot of good work that's already being done by the departments. We've got electric vehicles, just the dashboard looks fantastic.
We are great.
Just to sort of maybe we need more thought about how we tell these stories, because our citizens want to know that we're taking action in those areas. So in summary, fully support what's in front of us here. I would also like to have a larger discussion at some point, perhaps not here in this room, most certainly not here in this room, but perhaps with the mayor and others.
Yeah. And I think we have discussed some of this, but
We have.
But yes, that's a discussion for another day.
Yep.
Brian or Patrick, did either of you have anything?
No. I'm sorry.
No, I saw Nancy.
Yeah, I just thought I'd give them an opportunity first, because Nancy's already talked.
Yeah, I can go ahead. But I fully support this. It seems like it's an equal one-for-one what we have up to this point. And it has the primary objective of landmark sustainability, and then it's the assistance with the other pieces where you're primarily lead with the other items.
Yeah.
Which I think is at minimum what we can do. And I think for right now, that's what's on the table, and I support that. And we'll see where next steps go as we move forward.
And it is additional hours, more than Elisa's been. Doug, would you like to?
Yes, I can just clarify that, and just for the record too, I guess I was overcounting my committees. It's 4, not 5. So apologies about that. The hours would be a little bit higher. I think Elisa was around 18 to 20 hours a week, so this would be a couple more. And one of the key things here, I certainly the staff leads on those 2 commissions would be an increase. The Landmarks Commission would be a new element to that. But also the sort of professional planning experience. You'll see with the experience there that looking for the bachelor's degree and sort of having that level of expertise to be able to delegate certain tasks completely as well. So there's sort of a couple extra hours, but also I would say the wage and the qualifications would also be stepping up as well.
And it would also include benefits.
Yes.
Which is huge. I think it'd be very helpful if we had one person who could stay for a while rather than, we were pretty lucky with Elisa, but constant turnover. Nancy?
Yeah, I just, since apparently I wasn't clear enough, Elisa was working, 18 to 20 hours a week, and my understanding of this position would be 25, is that correct?
Correct.
And so there would be just a few more hours, as Doug just indicated, and those fewer hours could easily be sucked up by landmarks. Not to mention the increased volume at the at the planning commission and the planning department itself. And so again, my concern is that sustainability would be shortchanged at a time when I think we have all been very clear, including Brad, ruling that if anything, we would want to increase hours for the sustainability efforts citywide, not decrease them. And so if there's going to be a very clear delineation for this person, whoever they may be, that a certain number of hours per week, no less than what has been already dedicated to, so we're not going backwards in sustainability. If there's a clear delineation there in terms of how much time they're spending on sustainability, how much time they're spending for plan, and how much time they're spending for landmarks, I would feel more comfortable. I just think that it's an opportunity to consider in a more general sense where our dollars and time are best spent. And I'm concerned that sustainability would take a back seat to those other things, particularly to plan.
Okay.
That's my point.
Okay, and I understand
I hope
that.
I made it clearer this time.
I understand that. We have a limited amount of money we can work with. We're fortunate we were able to move around some dollars here, and Doug desperately needs help. And I realize sustainability is important. Part of the reason you haven't had a quorum is because we need to appoint 2 new people. And I would, anyway, we won't get into that. But, I don't know how the rest of you feel.
Call the question.
Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item, item C, consideration of resolution 22-7-2581, approval of revisions to the Monona Police Portable Audio Video Recorder Policy, put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Chief? Thank you, Doug.
My turn,
Go
Mayor?
ahead. Yes,
Okay,
Chief,
thank you.
please do.
I dare not walk a mile in Aldermore's shoes, so I'll turn that around. Hello, Council. So this is first introduction of the Lexipol policy as it relates to the squad mobile audio video. The next on the agenda we'll cover the body-worn camera policy. Just as a quick recap, I know you're quite probably familiar, but for those listening in and for the public, the city invested a significant amount of money into a policy consultation firm called Lexipol, which provided us this policy and is recommending that we implement this policy, among others. Currently, how it's set up with Lexipol is that they're designed for both small agencies like we would be considered and larger urban agencies to include thousands of officers. This particular policy is one of 2 that currently we have consolidated into one. So if any member of the public or yourselves look at our policy as it stands today, it covers both the in-car video and the body-worn camera into one policy. The reason Lexipol separates it into 2 is because there are some departments in this country that do not have a body-worn camera and only have in-car video, and vice versa. And so that's why there are 2 specific policies. It makes sense in the event and I don't foresee us doing this, but in the event we do get rid of one of the other, there is policy that stands. But we do utilize both in our day-to-day operations in patrol, and so that's why I think it's important to also keep both policies. You'll see in the policy before you, there were some changes that were made to include changes in terminology, assignments. We really don't have the personnel to assign somebody to be the sort of day-to-day technician of the implementation of this policy. So what we instead do, as we do with many other policies where we have technology needs and somebody to sort of make sure that we're in compliance with state regulation, law, and policy, is that we assign an administrator. And for a lot of our technology needs, that falls on Assistant Chief Sarah Duman, who's been doing a lot of this for some time, for a couple of decades. And Sarah, if you're listening, I apologize, but that's the case, that you've been doing this job for some time. So you'll see some of the terminology change with that respect. You'll see that I've added some things based on sort of how we operate in terms of our use of our body-worn camera and how it interacts with our in-car video. We do not require officers who are equipped with our body-worn camera, which is a requirement if you go out into the field and patrol. We do not then also require that they carry the microphone for the in-car video for the squad. The body-worn camera records audio and video. The microphone for this squad, it's small, it's fragile, it's often, can get broken easily. It's not in a hard, compact case as a body-worn camera. But also you're getting 2 audio recordings of the same interaction because the officer would carry that on them. I find that, and as did my predecessor, for that to be redundant. And most agencies, like we do, say you have to have your body-worn camera, and as an option you can check out the squad microphone if you so choose. We have one officer that chooses to do that. The rest do not, but that option is available for them. In those instances in which the battery, for example, fails on the body-worn camera, or their body-worn camera gets damaged as a result of a scuffle or it's dropped, they can utilize the microphone for the in-car video, but that's sort of as a last resort. The in-car video microphone shall not, in this policy, replace the body-worn camera. That's priority. So there's language in this policy that sort of reflects that, and I wanted to make sure that you understood why that was added.
So what does this system record? I mean, is it just recording at the squad, or, I mean, I know you said that you take the audio with them, but otherwise, what's it recording?
Great question. The mobile audio video for the squad is the camera you see that's forward facing for the squad, so it'll capture anything forward facing, and there are some the capability to record like the backseat passenger as well. But mainly it's the header camera that's forward facing, which captures everything that forward of the car.
Yeah, okay.
From the, not necessarily the driver's perspective, but from that camera's perspective as it's looking out the windshield.
And it's automatically activated when if the squad's emergency lights are turned on?
There are certain triggers that will activate it. The officer can manually hit the record button. The device is constantly recording, so it's looping over itself. So if you hit the record button, it's going to automatically save and preserve seconds prior to you actually hitting it, because it's constantly recording over itself. And when you hit that record button, then it captures it. So that's the manual option. The other option is if the officer engages, as you referenced, the emergency lights, that activates the device and then the recording. If there is a jolt or significant impact of the vehicle, the sensors in the in-car video detect that and start recording. And if the officer, we have it set so that if the officer is traveling over 80 miles an hour, that it captures the audio device, or the recording device starts to record.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Alder Holmquist.
Yeah, in section 421.7.1,
Mm-hmm.
7.1, why the deletion if the court is ordering the original copy? Why wouldn't we want to preserve a copy locally?
So, and that's a good question. So again, these policies are designed for agencies that do not operate how we operate with respect to how we deliver digital evidence to our DA's office. We do, yeah. We now have a sort of a hardware-less system in which we share information with the DA's office. So, well, yes, there's hardware. I misspoke, but it is through the cloud, not necessarily the old burn and record and hand over to the DA's office. That option's still available.
We actually are preserving it.
Correct. So we keep the original. And we should not be handing over the original to the DA's office unless they're thereby ordered by a court to deliver the actual original document.
And then 421.4.1, why is that whole section struck out?
Brian, could you lean into the microphone because it's you can't hear you.
I will, both of us? Yeah, we will. We're both Brian, sorry. We'll both
I
do
would just like to know what the question was and the comments are, and we can't hear Brian. Sorry, we can't hear Brian Holmquist.
It's your fault, sir.
Yeah, so 421.4.1 is asking why the whole section was struck out.
Yes. So this is a situation in which, I'm not a fan of policy that lists, that create lists of, it limits sort of, the policy. So it starts by saying it's not intended to describe every situation in which the MAV can be used, and then starts to list situations in which the MAV can be used. So that's one concern I have with respect to any policy that's like that. But also, this is, again, one of those things that's redundant because we do have a body-worn camera in which we have supporting policy, which sort of articulates when it should be activated, when it shouldn't be activated. It doesn't necessarily list those cases, but again, imagine that if you didn't have a body-worn camera in your department and this is all you had, this makes more sense that you would sort of need to list those situations as examples. But again, I as chief and sort of how I approach things, I really don't like lists because when it comes to litigation and when it comes to sort of trying to decipher if you were in compliance with policy or not, oftentimes you're asked about the list. And everything we do isn't necessarily black and white. Does that sort of answer? Okay.
I think at the end, you clarified the biggest point of like when a policy is being used to determine was someone in violation of the policy, having a description of when, if it includes a list that really then hones in on like, well, if it's not on the list, it's not on the list, despite the paragraph above. Not limiting you, so I appreciate the kind of description of like, we'd rather not have a list, we'd rather focus on the body-worn camera, not on the dash.
Absolutely. There are some situations where lists are appropriate, and oftentimes that has been dictated by statute or case law. In this case, it's not.
Anyone else? Thank you. Moving on to item 2D, consideration of resolution 22-7-2582, approval of revisions to the Monona Police body-worn camera policy, also put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Chief, it's all yours again.
Thank you, Mayor. As not changed from the Public Safety Committee's review, there are some grammatical changes that need to occur, the spelling of there, changing a couple of the terminologies to best reflect some of the changes of the terminology being used, such as administrator versus coordinator. So those changes will be made in the final edition. But so now this is talking about the body-worn camera and those policies as it relates to the body-worn camera. I think I hope I did a good enough job explaining the prior policy. This is very thorough, and if you've not had a chance to review our current policy, in my opinion, this is in more detail than our current policy, and it provides, at least here, with respect to sort of state statute and best practice, what makes sense and why this policy is in place and some of the terminology and language being used. What I particularly appreciated about this policy is that Lexipol and its breadth of sort of experience and knowledge of working with police policies in different agencies, they've taken note to things that are important to police response. There's a whole section in here that identifies sort of when it's important to turn off your body-worn camera, specifically as it relates to responding to bomb threats. That's something that typically, unless you're doing the job, unless you have experience in responding to these sorts of threats, you don't naturally go to and think, oh, I better turn everything that emits a radio wave off on my body. That's something that Lexipol points out and actually was important enough to actually put it in the policy for that consideration. I bring that up because as I talk about Lexipol, we've seen that throughout their hundreds of policies, those very details which I think are important. So back to this in particular, I'm here for questions, but I think that there's little that I've changed in this policy as it relates to those, as you pointed out, or Alder Holmquist in the in-car video policy.
Questions, anyone? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item E, presentation, possible discussion of the 2021 sustainability dashboard. Brad is on Zoom.
Yes.
Is he going to be showing
Brad's going to be doing
something on the screen, I assume?
it. Sure. Brad, do you need something to share on the screen?
The dashboard would be great if we have it. I can share it right now, actually. Somebody has to allow me to do that.
Should be just done. You should be able to do it now.
Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
There we go. All right, so I was asked to present tonight on the 2021 Sustainability Dashboard for some of the new alders who may not have seen any of these before. We've been producing these, pretty much since Alita was with us as an intern. They're just a way to wrap up what we've done in a year in terms of progressing towards the goals that are in the sustainability plan and in the 100% clean energy resolution. The main categories for sustainability for the city of Monona are, waste, water, transportation, land use, and general sustainability items. And I may be missing one. I can't remember if there's another one. I think there is, but either way, there's a lot of the story of Monona in a given year in terms of sustainability is presented in this dashboard. We also have ones from 2019 and 2020. I believe I put up the 2020 dashboard out in the library entryway. So as you walked in tonight, you may have seen it. It was off to the right-hand side. A copy of the 2021 dashboard was there as well, but we haven't had time to print it onto a placard or a sign yet. So we like to do that so that we can put it out at events and make sure that the city and the rest of the residents, get to see this. They understand that we're making progress. This is a goal of the cities. This always has been since I've started at Monona. So sustainability has been a big item. And a lot of staff time has gone towards trying to progress towards these goals. So one of the really great things that we had a huge bike and rodeo this year, which was awesome for the kids in the community. It says up in the top left, over 100 kids attended. It was one of the biggest ones since I've been here. I can't remember a bigger one, so that's great. They teach kids how to fix their bikes, how to ride safely, how to adhere to traffic laws, and just in general being careful when they're on their bicycles in Monona. The other item is the We had 31 storm drains adopted in 2021. That's the third most since 2017, since the program got implemented. So that was really good. I mean, 31 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a decent amount. I think that we had at least 15 volunteers. 11 volunteers. So about 3 to 1. So 3 volunteers or 3 drains per volunteer adopting storm drains. And basically, the program is out there to help inform and educate residents and get them motivated to, clean up storm drains, help with stormwater management, inform the city when they see something that's not right, like an oil leak or something like that, so that we can deal with it and get it taken care of. Obviously, protecting our lakes is like $1 billion investment for the local community and or economy, and it's a big deal. So the city has put millions of dollars towards stormwater treatment projects throughout the past. So that's just a little project that it has the potential to go a long way. Other than that, there's a couple other items in here. We do have a Facebook page. If you are an alder or a resident and you haven't subscribed to the city's sustainability Facebook page, I encourage you to do so. Elisa's done a great job, and I really wish that she was still here, but obviously she's on to bigger things for her. And we have a lot of great information on the Facebook page. There's a ton of good stuff there. And then in terms of our energy efficiency, Alder Moore commented on it earlier, and we have big goals. The city has huge goals in terms of clean energy. 100% renewable or clean energy is not easy for an entire municipality to get to. And I think one of the low-hanging fruits, it's not cheap by any means, but it is definitely right there, and it's something that we can definitely do, is streetlights. The city streetlights are all high-pressure sodium and or metal halide. It depends, but most of them are about like 5 times the energy use of an LED that would be comparable. That's it on here. It's 19% of our actual total electricity usage just to light the streets in Monona. I think that Dan, our Public Works and Utilities Director, has already put in a 3-year plan for funding to replace all of the old antiquated streetlights with LEDs. So that 19% could be reduced down to even like 5% of the total energy use in the city in the next 3 years. So that's a big deal. But there's a long way to go. The city does have a goal. I think I say this every year, but 25% renewable energy by 2025. That was the original goal set up, and I want to say it was 2011. City committed to. Most municipalities in Dane County committed to it, and so we're getting close. The city of Monona is close. I think it says 19.9% up here in the top left corner. So that 6% is a big deal, though. It's not going to be cheap, and it might be a reach to rely on MG&E to make up the rest by that point in time. So there's 3 years left for the city to meet their goals, and I think that streetlights are going to go a long way, and we'll see what else comes up down the pipeline here. Now I'll take any other questions from anybody.
Questions, anyone, for Brad? I have a question, Brad. Is this on your? I'm looking at your page on the website, and I see it for previous years. I don't see it for this year. For 2020.
Lisa didn't.
Actually, I don't see it for 2020 either.
Oh, it should have been up there. Yeah, I remember seeing it at one point in time in our webpage. I'll have to search for it.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking on the right-hand side, there's, the ones for the previous years are listed there, but if you could check, that'd be great. Alder Moore, did you have a question?
I did. First of all, I have I just want to extend my gratitude to Elisa for her work on this, and to Brad both. I know it's not easy to pull together. And I'm sure, Brad, you're aware that there's a number of typos that should probably be corrected. And then it could be put back up on the website, because I know it's on the website, city website already. But again, I just want to extend my gratitude to Lisa. And the second thing is, I know that the Sustainability Committee before I left was talking about connecting the dots, which is to say, we see a lot of good things like, particularly as it relates to things like the hybrid vehicles in the police department, for instance. But we're not necessarily or the number of signs, number of storm drains that have been adopted, but we're not necessarily seeing the translation of how the ROI of that, both in terms of energy and in terms of gas use or carbon saved. And I know that when we talked about it in the Sustainability Committee about connecting the dots, telling the story better to the community, one of the things that Elisa said was that Green Power Tomorrow was revamping its key performance indicators that would hopefully help us be able to tell the story better. And I'm wondering if that's if you know where that's at, and if you're anticipating that it will be helpful.
So I talked to about Green Power Tomorrow, and the way I understand it is that they decided to not change their rate system, which was an incentive to join onto it, right? So, which is good, because all of their other rates went up, which is always what is one of the biggest issues with the city of Monona. We try and cut energy, and we assume, and for good reason, that it's going to cut costs, but in reality, it's very difficult to do so, because the utility is always going to get their revenue. They're going to hit their mark, so to speak. And so maybe we're not reducing overhead as much as we think we are, but we're reducing our energy use. And the MG&E Green Power Tomorrow is holding rates constant to try and get more people to join up. So it's actually more beneficial now for the city to join than it used to be, if that makes any sense. It's a gap, it's a stopgap, right? The city put in their resolution fairly specific language that purchasing energy is not the goal necessarily. It's in there. It basically tries to incentivize the city to do as much as they can to either reduce energy and or produce their own. But
right,
not a bad program, and it does directly fund MG&E's green power. Their green power production.
Right. No, I was talking about the green tier, and just again trying to connect the dots for the community and for the council, frankly, in terms of the progress that we're making. And then also, I would just say, related to that, as we've talked about, as you know, Brad, in the Sustainability Committee, Monona will have to be, if we're going to budge that 19.9% sum, not only with Green Power Tomorrow, but as it relates to potentially a REC, solar REC, we need to be in a position to know how much we want to purchase, because the fields that are going up are going up quickly and are sold quickly, and so I would just, ask that the staff maybe come forward as part of the budgeting process for this year or something, with a recommendation to be in a position, because we're going to have to decide quickly. I mean, if MG&E just, announces they're putting up a new field, 9 times out of 10, by the time it's in the press, it's already sold. And we're going to need to take advantage of that, since we don't have fields, as we've unfortunately discovered. We don't have big areas to put up our own solar fields, so we're going to have to work with Rex and with Green Power Tomorrow to get our renewable to where we want it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we can reach out to MG&E and get a ballpark estimate of, if we wanted this many kilowatt hours, what are we talking about? If we needed to throw it into a budget, what do we need? That kind of thing, and just see what they say. And then we can, if we know or are aware that something's coming down, we can at least put it in the 5-year capital plan or something like that. Just see where it goes from there. The other thing is that we have, the public works garage needs a new roof, and the capital budgets are coming down the line. So I'm just throwing this out there. Well, we can't put a new roof on if the solar arrays that are there, and so we're going to have to take them off. And if we're talking about a new potential building for the city down in the civic campus area, and if the library needs a new roof, which it's about at that age, then those are 3 of the 4 facilities that have solar on them now that are all potentially somewhere down the line very soon going to have the solar panels removed. So maybe that's an opportunity to upgrade what was there. So I'm just throwing that out there. In terms of the city's goals, it's any opportunity that the city can take is might as well look at it.
Does anybody else have anything else for Brad? Alderwood?
Actually, more just a comment on the Green Power Tomorrow program. If people haven't signed up for that, I would really encourage you to take a look at it. It's like 1 cent more per kilowatt hour. To basically, you can decide what percentage of your energy will come from renewable sources. You can do it up to 100%. And so you do have, as a consumer, you have a choice of where the power comes from. And it also, I think, the more people who do it, the more pressure it keeps on MG&E and other, obviously, in the entire energy market. If there's more consumer demand, then they can make money doing it. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, I know I signed up for it a few years ago after hearing about it at a council meeting, and I had no idea how it really isn't that much more expensive. Anyone else have anything?
I just want to thank all the city staff folks and any community members who were involved in just the work that's reflected on the dashboard, and mostly city staff who collected the statistics and made it into a digestible format, and Alden Moore, who I know a few years ago sort of got us rolling toward creating these dashboards every year. They really are helpful to capture the work the city's doing. And I think any citizen would be really proud to look at this right now. There is a lot more work to do, but it's great to celebrate what we've done so far.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. All right, that is the last item under new business. Moving on to reports of committees and commissions. First thing is any updates or discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. One thing I wanted to be sure to mention was we did have the forum that the ad hoc DEIB committee. They've added B for belonging. Sponsor list Thursday, and we had a good turnout. Jason, Chung, and I we had no idea how many people to plan on, and I think there were about 35 people there, which, especially considering it was in the middle of a beer garden night, was very impressive, and there was good discussion, and I thought it was a good event. So
I was surprised by the number of gray-haired people there as opposed to younger people. And it may be because they've got kids or whatever, but I was really proud. I mean, there were people that I didn't expect to see there from the community who clearly are interested in moving the community forward in this arena. And
yeah, I agree. Some people I didn't know at all. I hadn't seen anything like this before, so that was good. And Leah, I would just point out, was a huge help putting together all of the pieces for us. We had supplies and various things we needed, so.
35.
Does anyone else have?
Did you say about 35 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of originally were talking about maybe 20 or 25, and we had to set up some extra chairs, and so it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
And the meeting was not recorded, correct?
Correct. They did not want it recorded or streamed.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just wanted
Kathy?
to talk about, are we done talking about the DEI? Because I wanted to bring up something else.
I was going to move on to sustainability.
No, I was going to just talk about the event at the church on Saturday.
Oh, sure. No, go ahead.
Because the mayor was out of town, so I went to it was a ribbon cutting for a Latino church on Femrite Drive. Large congregation, very interested. The pastor, Pastor Pedro, is a really dynamic guy who said, he wanted to be part of the community. And for those of you who are interested in the issue of affordable housing, the pastor happens to work for Dane County. He is a housing specialist, I think CDBG, but he does outreach to Hispanic people. And he kept saying, and if the community, if they need to use the church, we're open to letting people. And I said, and after church, take your children to the parks and the pool and the playgrounds, and go out for breakfast at one of our fine restaurants. So, but I think they're a fine addition to the community. And I don't know about all of their parishioners, but he, who is certainly a busy man, was very mentioned multiple times wanting to be contribute to the community.
And he and the chief probably knows a little bit more about this than I did, but they did sponsor a shelter for homeless when it was below zero, right? Last winter. I'm not sure how many nights they actually were open, but he had reached out to us about that, and the chief, you went over there and met with him, didn't you? And
I didn't get a chance. We just had an exchange.
okay.
I did talk to him about meeting with the chief, and
Yeah.
so I think, as I say, I think he's a pretty busy person, but he had some very energetic members of his church, and who I think might be, and who didn't seem to know much about Monona.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we've tried to connect a couple times, and it always fell through, so we'll continue to try. Thank you for representing me, though.
Well,
and the city.
I did say that you really would like to be there, and you're welcome.
And I would have, yes.
So
Thank you. Teresa?
it's my pleasure.
To add to the DEI discussion, I think it should be noted that as a follow-up to the Nehemiah report and the leasing report, since our last council meeting, members of this body attended some training that was hosted by Nehemiah Center at the City Hall, and I just think that's important for our citizens to understand that the community is taking these things very seriously, and elders are attending some introspection, some work, and examining these sorts of things. I'm also curious if So we have DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Is it diversity with, I'm trying to find a way to bring the conversation back to the appearance earlier tonight about the obscene.
I don't know if we can really discuss that.
Wouldn't that fall under diversity of opinion that we welcome and how it's not very
Yeah, it's a
fair
First
that we're
Amendment
excluding, yeah.
political speech.
Yeah. But it's very uncalled for, yeah, okay.
Mark, I don't know if you wanted to address that. I know Bill Cole talked about it at your staff meeting this morning.
Yeah, we asked them exactly about that, and came down to it's the First Amendment. They've had these issues years ago too, and came back to the same thing. As long as it's not in the city right away, we can't enforce it. So
Something the speaker brought up, and she sort of like beat me to the punch, but the first thing that I thought of, just because of the nature of work that I do, I thought of Wisconsin State Statute 947.01, disorderly conduct, and it reads, whoever in a public or private place engages in violent, abusive, indecent, profane, boisterous, unreasonably loud, or otherwise disorderly conduct under circumstances in which the conduct tends to cause or provoke a disturbance is guilty of a Class B misdemeanor, which Class B misdemeanors are punishable by up to 90 days in jail or a $1,000 fine. If the person is found guilty, obviously no district attorney is going to prosecute. They've got their hands full. Our police are not going to go and refer to the DA. But clearly there has been, there's expectations for public behavior and comportment and decency and civility to the extent that it's written into law. And it's disappointing.
Alder Thomas.
Well, my sense is the more fuss you make about this, the more of it you will have, because people will challenge your right to question their right to do it.
Patrick?
My opinion is that it's clearly political speech. You don't like it. I don't personally like it, but it's political speech is protected.
Yeah. It's unfortunately one of those things we can't really do much about. Anyone else have any diversity inclusion things to talk about? We will move on to sustainability. Anything to add? Oh, Nancy?
Mayor, sorry. Thank you. I'm wondering, I appreciate the forum as well that was provided, and I'm wondering if a plan has been made with respect to what to do with the recommendations on the report, or if there's a group gathering to discuss what's going to happen with the report. I just, there were a lot of really terrific recommendations in that, and I just want to make sure that someone is got it on their plate in terms of how we're going to tackle some of those issues, some of them obviously being low-hanging fruit, in my view, but others might have budget implications that we're actually approaching.
Well, number one, this is something I see as eventually whoever's the new administrator will be taking charge of this, but one of the recommendations was to appoint an implementation committee that would prioritize the recommendations. So I am starting to think about that. In fact, I had Jason send me the list of, not everyone who was at the meeting signed in, but those who did, to contact them to see if they'd be interested. And I have people who applied for the ad hoc committee last year who I couldn't appoint everyone. And anyway, so I'm going to be reaching out to some people about putting together a committee, but it's going to be a while because we've got a lot going on here. But it's not something we're just going to file the report away. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I appreciate that clarity.
Okay. Anybody have anything about sustainability to add? Okay. We'll move on to committee reports. Alder DePula.
Transportation committee hasn't met since last time, so I think, are we meeting on the 20th?
I think we are.
Okay, so we're meeting on the 20th. We had discussed before about not doing the survey and just getting the information out, and we're going to discuss that further and schedule some dates for public hearings.
Alder Holmquist. Alder Wood.
Parks Board met last week, and we had the first review of the proposed capital budget. Yeah, that's all.
Going to talk about the beer garden, the successful beer garden at San Damiano.
I can't because I wasn't there. I was sure it was going to be canceled, and so I made so you can.
I heard thousands showed up.
I think I could talk about it.
Tens of thousands.
Are you done reporting, Alder Wood?
Yes, I am.
Alder Thomas?
No report.
Alder Rademacher?
Yeah, I will say that landmarks did not meet last time. Just heard from sustainability and public safety. We heard from tonight with some reports. Community media, some wonderful news coming out of that committee. I've been working with the committee folks just to do some planning and look out at some things we want to tackle, one of them being the newsletter. And we had two folks on the committee with some journalism background, newsletter background, and they stepped up to volunteer to put that together. So that's just great news.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Alder Moore?
Yeah, I'd be happy to report on the beer garden. As Kathy mentioned, San Damiano had its first beer garden. It was hugely successful. I don't know that there were thousands, but there were definitely, we estimated over 1,000. So it was very well attended. We lucked out with the weather, as Doug indicated. We thought about canceling it, but we're really glad we didn't. It was a great turnout, and I want to extend my gratitude to the Parks and Rec staff who just knocks it out of the park with such a huge crowd. To the Friends of San Damiano, we sold out, if you will, with the sign-ups on the tours. We weren't selling the tours, we were just getting sign-ups, and we had all the slots filled. That was 20 people every half hour. Within the first half hour of the sign-ups, and we had close to another 200 people that signed up and wanted a tour later. So I want to thank the Friends of San Damiano as well, and also thank the band, who's Vinona's own Slow Burn, including a lot of folks that we all know, and it was a terrifically successful event. Also on the Plan Commission front, I just wanted to report that the Plan Commission provided a unanimous recommendation for approval of a development that has been suggested for where the Monona Garden Restaurant currently is. It's been a development that's been under discussion for, I think, over a year now. And can't say enough about Populance, the developer, and his wisdom in listening to the Plan Commission and his patience with working through the Plan Commission as well as going to Public Works. And I want to thank the Public Works Committee, who have also spent a lot of time on the development and let the City Council know that that's something that they'll be viewing in fairly short order.
Thank you. And I think they also ran out of beer in addition to sign-ups for the house tour at the beer garden.
They did. They absolutely did. Yeah.
Alder Rademacher?
Oh, and I just want to say, again, I just want to say thank you to Elisa, because she's been a rock star as an intern and staff member here, and just can't thank her enough.
Teresa, do you have something else to add?
I was just going to add about San Damiano. I just want to make it a proper thank you to Jake Anderson. He did such a great job, getting on the microphone and just explaining to the people there that, the city is entering into sort of this visioning phase, and he was soliciting feedback and letting folks know that we were welcoming their input, and I thought that was really important, and he did a great job of explaining that to everyone who was there. I spoke to a number of people that were not from Monona that drove a long way, just to see the place. It was a great event.
Cool. Chief, did you have anything to report?
Alder Thomas is packing up, so I'll be quick.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I know. All right, thank you. I have three things to cover. First of all, National Night Out, a pitch for our National Night Out on August 9th. If I got that right, yes, August 9th at 4 o'clock. We're changing it up this year. It's going to be more games and free food for kids and a lot more activities and more interactive sort of engagement that'll be taking place. We have our friends from the DNR, our friends from State Patrol, our friends from other law enforcement agencies, McFarland, who, as you all recall, was a big help for our weather event. So they've been invited to attend. But you'll see a bit of a change for National Night Out this year. Horses are coming back, and of course our very own canine as well. But so please spread the word. We've just posted on social media. I plan to do a WVMO plug and maybe a couple of more opportunities to spread the word on that. We are hiring currently part-time officers thanks to this body's approval. So please help spread the word for that. That position has been posted, as well as creating an eligibility list for full-time officers should there be a vacancy for full-time officers. So the PFC president and I have gotten together, and he will convene a meeting of the PFC in the future for that process. But as of right now, we're taking applications. And then lastly, since we've not met since the horrific event in Highland Park, I just wanted to mention that and bring recognition to that horrible event. And of course, our thoughts are with those lost and the family members in Highland Park. Being a Chicago native and having friends and family in that area, it certainly struck home for me, making sure that those who I know and love were safe, but also, of course, there are plenty who did not pick up that phone call. So our thoughts are with those people. But more than thoughts is action. And so for the many residents who I did talk to, and some of you who inquired as to sort of what our policies, procedures are with respect to our preparedness and response to events like that, I can tell you that it'd be foolish of any of us not to learn from these events, these horrific events. So in the spirit of continuous improvement, in the spirit of making sure that we fulfill our mission in keeping our communities safe, we of course evaluate what was done and what we can do better here. So moving forward, although I do believe that our last two big events, we were prepared. I think we had a robust staffing plan for both the Memorial Day event as well as the 4th of July event. I think that the fire chief and I, and Public Works and Parks and the city clerk, we all did our part to get together before the event and walk through contingencies and make sure we dotted our I's and crossed the T's. As you notice, we have a big command vehicle out there on loan from the Dane County Emergency Management, which hopefully shows the public that we've planned and that we're prepared. But also, there are some assets that we've retained and that we will continue to do so in the future, sort of behind the scenes for your safety and for the public safety that we'll continue to deploy and make available to us. But I wanted to say that this also is a reminder for me and other city staff, as we spoke in a meeting this morning about, is to continue to evaluate those wonderful events that we have here in Monona, such as beer gardens, and making sure that those continue to remain a safe environment for those who attend. And so my job as your police chief is to look at those events, and I'll talk with the mayor after an assessment is done and to make recommendations to what the city police department should staff or potentially offer some resources to, so that we all are safe. So the goal is to have fun, to have a blast, to come to Monona, to have a good time. And our job in police and fire is to make sure that we're all kept safe. So that's it.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Kathy? Sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't wish to be an alarmist. These are really troubling times for everybody. And I want to commend the chief and the police department, because people say, well, are they prepared? And I said, every incident that I know of, they are more than prepared, and people don't see what goes on, so that they're prepared as best they can be to handle these eventualities. And I'm grateful that we have you, Chief, because I know that you worry about this stuff. And I thank you for all that you and the officers do, because I know it's a lot. And sometimes it can be annoying when you tell us what we can't do and what people can't do and the limitations. But it isn't like the good old days. You know, I was talking to someone about the festival, and I can remember in the good old days, if an under 18-year-old went in the beer tent, we didn't have to worry, because everybody in town was in there and knew them and said, if you don't leave, I'm going to tell your folks. But it's really different than that now. It's about guns and weapons and scariness. So thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just piggyback on that, first of all, thank you. And I'm sure the staff appreciates hearing that as well. Because, you know, I'm in a command vehicle. They're out there fully exposed, risking their lives, and they're going to run to the fight and protect all of you. So, but, you know, I think what you mentioned is accurate. My goal when planning these, and the Chief McMullen's goal is, we want to get to the point where we can sleep the night prior comfortably, knowing that we did all we could, and we have done that for both of our major events. And so just looking forward now, we're on edge, right, because things are happening in this world that are constant reminders of the dangers out there and all the, you know, the guns that are accessible, and some of the, you know, the wonderful freedoms that we enjoy comes with, you know, preparedness and planning to make sure that we're all safe. So we're going to continue to do that. And I just wanted to say too that I failed to mention is that we train for things, but we also want to deter so that we don't have to act, right? So there you can expect members of the public and council more visible presence of police officers. You can expect to see us with equipment that you probably have not seen us armed with in the past, as we're standing posts and we're keeping guard over the public. And that, unfortunately, is our new reality. But I want you to rest assured that your officers are trained. We've planned for it. We've tabletopped. We've done exercises, not just locally here, but just with our community, our area law enforcement partners and our federal and state partners as well. They're going to go to the fight. And one of the things I told a good friend of mine who is actually a police officer in the Chicagoland area, once we had learned about the actions and activities of that suspect from Highland Park coming to Wisconsin, is that he would have been met with a very bad day. Very bad day. So we were prepared. So thank you.
City Clerk, do you have anything to say about the election? Or?
Yes, in-person absentee voting at City Hall starts July 26th at 8 a.m. and goes till August 5th.
Thank you. Mark?
No report.
I just had a couple things. As you all, I think you all got notification that we'll be conducting in-person interviews for administrator candidates next Tuesday, beginning at 5:30, and the plan is for the council to be involved in that as well. The council and the search committee will meet together for the interviews, and then we'll end up with just the council discussing at the end, but giving input. So that'll start at 5:30. We will be providing some subs or something to eat. So we're hoping you can all make that. I think, Mark, did you give operating budget instructions today, or are you?
We'll still be coming out soon.
Okay, yeah, operating budget instructions will be coming soon to your committees, and it is going to be a really, really, really tight budget. I know I say that every year, but this year even more so than usual. And the other thing is the San Damiano Steering Committee is having our initial meeting with MSA tomorrow night to do the kickoff of the planning process. So that's everything I had. We have 3 appointments. The first 2 are actually reappointments, and we will indicate that these are reappointments going forward of Rosalind Ebel and Aaron Monroe Nye both to the library board, and then I'm appointment of Michael Fox to the Police and Fire Commission.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Mayor, I have a quick question about the election.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
question about the election.
About the election?
I have a quick question, about the election.
Okay.
I'm assuming that the state's recent move means that the drop box is no longer an option for people. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we mention that, because I don't think we can assume that our residents all have read that news, and since I know our Dropbox has been a popular feature of our elections, I just thought it would be worth mentioning that the Dropbox will not be available to people.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it wasn't available at the spring election, and it's not
taped shut right now.
In fact, it's taped shut. We don't have the ballot Dropbox at all out there. The one that you could drop your utility payments off is taped shut, as is the slot in the desk inside Front Hall. You have to physically ring the bell and hand your ballot to someone behind the counter. Correct? Is that right?
Right.
Thank you, Aldermore. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.